So Kevin O'Leary has just changed his position on Bitcoin, and now he's decided to allocate 3% of his portfolio into Bitcoin. And if you don't remember, Kevin O'Leary, just a while ago, had said that Bitcoin is nothing, it's garbage, and if he could, he would have shorted it, and it will end badly with Bitcoin. But now he's changed his position. Remember, he was the only shark on Shark Tank who was the biggest critic of Bitcoin and he hated it. The other sharks were always very bullish on Bitcoin except him. And this just reminds me of the book, The Millionaire's Fast Lane. And it's such an important book to read because in the book he points out the problem of getting advice from really wealthy off people, billionaires like Ray Dalio or Bill Gates, Charlie Munger, Buffett, and even O'Leary. And what he says is that those who are preaching one thing are doing the complete opposite. So you'll find that they make a lot of their money off of other business projects that aren't tied with the advice they're giving you. So just to give you an idea of what happened, he claims that the facts changed and now he's bullish because things have suddenly changed, where in fact it's his opinion that's changed. So what he's now saying is that regulators have started to warm up to Bitcoin, which is why he's now allocating money to it. But the reality is that regulators have hated it. They've barely said much about it. The only issue they had with it were people who were promoting ICOs and were getting paid by the ICO companies on the side and not telling their fans that they're being paid, and then they're not taking any actual risk because they're getting paid on the side, and then the fans are taking all the risk by getting involved in these risky ICOs. That's the only SEC law that was preventing you from marketing these coins, but there's been no law that prevented you from buying Bitcoin as he's claiming. So in his words, in his contradictory words, he said, I don't play in industries where the regulator has not decided what they want to do yet. So if that was the case, there was no reason for him to be trash talking it since 2017. Since 2017, he's been talking about how he lost $100 in Bitcoin, and from there he's just hated it, and it's just been a terrible investment. Even though it was $100. So if you care about industries where they're regulated, why even trash talk? Why even talk about it? And then all of a sudden he flips the switch and says, you know what? In fact, I've been in Bitcoin since 2017. All of a sudden the scripts change and he says, I've been in Bitcoin since 2017. But since then he's been trash talking it. So what it means is, if he's telling the truth, is that he's been holding Bitcoin and then trash talking it. So then people don't get involved. And then we lose out while he's holding on the side and celebrating and trying to convince us to not get involved, which is something the Millionaire Fast Lane talks about, where he says that they sell you one thing and they tell you one thing, and then on the side they do something completely different. So they tell you the idea of investing for the long term, holding shares and things like that, yet they make money off of books. So in the book they point out things like Tony Robbins, who makes a lot of money off books and not actually investing or holding businesses. It's the same kind of thing where you're told one thing and they're doing something completely different on the side. Because if he was careful about regulator, why buy Bitcoin in 2017 when it wasn't regulated? If that were true and he's been holding since 2017, that means he's been holding something which is unregulated. And then all of a sudden he says, well, I don't play in industries that are unregulated, but I've also been holding something which is unregulated. And then I've now decided to get involved because they're now going to be ETFs which are Bitcoin based. So now I'm involved. It's just a mess, and I think he didn't want to tell people. I don't know which is the truth, whether he's been involved since 2017, or the fact that he's now just saying he's been involved since 2017, and he won't own up to the fact that things have changed and institutions have warmed up to Bitcoin. Um, and yeah, what's Bitcoin buying got to do with the regulators? Because he was like, I've been against it. The only reason why I was against it is because the regulators were against it. But the regulators have never been against anyone buying Bitcoin or anyone talking about it. It's never been illegal. It's only been maybe if you're involved in the exchanges and you're offering it to people as a business, possibly, and you're marketing it. That's possibly the biggest issue there actually is. And I remember a statement he said in a while ago, and he was like, wait till the regulators get involved. Grown men are going to cry, everyone's going to lose their money. And yet now here he is saying, oh, okay, the regulators have in fact supported it, so now I'm also involved. It's really strange, and really does bring to your attention what the Millionaire Fast Lane, the book, is talking about, where it's like they'll tell you one thing and they'll tell you they invest in real estate and things like that, when they actually don't take all of the risk. They get paid by real estate companies to market the businesses, and they also make money from tons of money from books, advertising, YouTube, and things like that, and not actually taking the risk which they tell you to take. And also trying to discourage you from taking investments. So, for example, like Bill Gates, he was sitting with Charlie Munger and Buffett, and he was like, "Oh, I hate Bitcoin," and then all of a sudden he's involved in Ripple. It's the same thing with like institutions who have hated Bitcoin for so long, and then all of a sudden, like JP Morgan, all of a sudden introducing their own coin, yet they've hated Bitcoin for so long. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, then he said, "I've owned crypto since 2017, but I couldn't speak about it. There's been no law that says you can't speak about Bitcoin, especially the SEC has never said you can't speak about it. Possibly marketing it to people and advertising it for them to buy. That's the biggest issue. But there's never been a problem with you flaunting the fact that you have a huge portfolio." Michael Saylor has always talked about his big billions in Bitcoin. Even Raul, I think he's British Brazilian. He's always talked about I forgot his surname. His name is Raul Paul or Raul something else. He's always talked about his holding in Bitcoin, and he's never had any problems with the SEC. So you can just tell like whatever Kevin is saying is not true. Anything else? Yeah, on that note, now he's also changed and said he sees Bitcoin as a hedge. Yet, if you remember, a while ago, he had a huge interview with this guy, and they were fighting on a news channel. And this guy was saying that with what's going to happen in the coming years, everyone knows there's a crash is imminent, economic turmoil is imminent, and everyone's talking about how to hedge their positions. And this guy was like, Bitcoin is such a great way to hedge your position. Michael Saylor came out and said it's such a good way to hedge your position. And then Kevin O'Leary basically said, no, it's not, and he was trash talking it. Yet now all of a sudden he says, I'm using it as a hedge. And then he said something also interesting. He was like, I wouldn't buy a Bitcoin mined in China. Which is so strange, because he was like, I will only buy Bitcoin that I mine. And so I'm only investing in miners, and then I'll invest in their companies. They'll mine for me and I'll invest in their companies. If there's anyone who's mining, I'll invest in their companies. And also with ETFs, he said he might not go down the ETF route. So he'll go down the mining route, which is he's mining his own coin. He's receiving royalties. Here's the thing. Kevin wants to avoid the risk but wants to get involved in Bitcoin. That's the biggest thing to just close off. So what he's doing now to avoid the risk is that he's paying people, he's investing in people's companies who are mining. So they're taking all the risk of electricity and theft and all of that. They're taking those risks, and then he's going to be receiving income like royalties. And so he's actually not holding, I don't think he's actually holding any Bitcoin. He's just going to be receiving royalties from those mining and selling the Bitcoin, which I think is really, really smart. I really do applaud him for that. I think that's really, really smart. You don't get involved in holding wallets where you can lose the keys. We've seen that even in Zim, where you can lose the keys. A huge crypto exchange lost keys to big investors' accounts. Theft, we've seen so many instances of theft of people's wallets and things like that, wallet details and things like that. So he's taken the smart route of just receiving income from royalties.